3 years passed since Earth joined the Galactic Council. Humans established small colonies in the Proxima and Tau Ceti systems. Ships traveled between the three systems regularly, carrying people, supplies, and news. On the surface, things seemed peaceful, but trouble was brewing. Commander Eric Blackwell sat in the captain's chair of the patrol ship Star Guardian. His ship moved slowly near the edge of the Proxima system. The colony there was small, just 20,000 people living under domes. On the planet's surface, Eric's job was to keep them safe. "Commander, we have 3 ships approaching from Sector 7, said Lieutenant Patel at the sensor station. "Identification?" Eric asked. "Zortan vessels, sir. Cruiser class." Eric frowned. The Zortans were known troublemakers, even among the council races. They had a large empire and always wanted more territory. Recently, they had started showing up in human space more often. "Open a channel," Eric ordered. The main screen flickered and showed a Zortan face. They looked somewhat like Earth reptiles, but with 4 eyes and gray-green skin covered in small bumps. "This is Commander Eric Blackwell of Earth Space Force. You are entering restricted human territory. Please state your purpose." The Zortan smiled, showing many sharp teeth. "I am Fleet Captain Draxord of the Zortan Empire. We are conducting routine patrols." "This is human space," Eric said firmly. "Your patrols have no authority here." Draxord laughed. "The Council recognizes your claim, but what will you do to enforce it? Your kind does not wage war. You will negotiate as you always do." The screen went dark as the Zortan cut the connection. Eric watched as the 3 ships continued moving into the system, completely ignoring his warning. "Sir?" asked Lieutenant Patel. "Should we intercept them?" Eric wanted to. Every instinct told him to show these aliens that humans weren't to be pushed around. But Council rules were clear. Human ships could not engage unless directly attacked. "Keep tracking them," he said, "and send a full report to Earth Command." This wasn't the first such incident. The Zortans had been testing human patience for months. They entered restricted space, ignored communications, and sometimes even landed survey teams on planets claimed by Earth. Each time, humans followed. Council procedures, filing complaints that went nowhere. On Earth, Director Olivia Martinez entered the President's office with a thick folder of reports. Her job at Colonial Security meant she saw all the reports from the colonies, and the picture they painted worried her. "Mr. President, the situation is getting worse," she said as she sat down. "The Zortans made 7 incursions into our space last month. Their ships are staying longer each time." President Garcia looked tired. "What does the Council say?" "The same as always. They'll investigate, but there's no evidence of hostile intent." Admiral Summers was also in the room. She pointed to a map showing Zortan ship movements. "They're being very careful. They never fire weapons or make direct threats, they just ignore our boundaries." "They're testing us," the President said, "seeing how much we'll tolerate before we push back." "And so far we've tolerated everything," Admiral Summers noted. "Just as the Council expected." Director Martinez opened her folder. "Intelligence suggests they're planning something bigger. Our sources indicate they're particularly interested in Tau Ceti." "That makes sense," the Admiral said. "Tau Ceti has the most resources. The mining operations there have discovered rare minerals that would be valuable to the Zortans." President Garcia stood up and walked to the window. From his office, he could see the gleaming buildings of Washington, D.C. Somewhere up there beyond the blue sky, humans were trying to build a future among the stars, a future threatened by aliens who thought humans were easy targets. "The Council misjudged us," he said quietly. "They think we avoid war because we fear it. They don't understand that humans prefer peace but will fight fiercely when necessary." He turned back to face the others. "It's time for Operation Quiet Reminder." Admiral Summers nodded. They had been planning this for 3 years, ever since the first Council meeting. "Are you sure, sir?" asked Director Martinez. "If the Council discovers what we're doing, they'll complain that we've violated the spirit of our agreement," the President finished for her. "But we haven't broken any rules. We've just interpreted them creatively." The admiral smiled. The council limited the size and number of our warships. They restricted weapon systems, but they never specified how well our ships could be built or how well our people could be trained. For the next 6 months, Earth implemented Operation Quiet Reminder. On paper, everything remained within council guidelines. The human space fleet still had the same number of ships, with the same official specifications. But in secret orbital facilities around Saturn, engineers modified those ships to maximize their effectiveness. Armor was improved using new alloys. Engines were tuned for better performance. Weapon systems were upgraded to the exact limit of what the council allowed. Most importantly, crews trained constantly. They ran combat simulations day and night. They practiced maneuvers that the council races had never seen before. They prepared for the fight that everyone knew was coming. At the Tau Ceti colony, Governor Alan Rodriguez watched his world grow. 40,000 colonists now lived under the large domes, mining the planet's rich resources and building a new society. The colony was Earth's greatest success in space. He received regular updates about the Zortan situation. Surveillance satellites detected more alien ships lurking at the edges of the system every week. The Zortans were building up their forces, preparing for something. They think we'll just hand over our colony rather than fight, he told his security chief one evening. They've completely misunderstood humans. In his private quarters on the Zortan flagship, Draxord reviewed the final plans for taking the Tau Ceti colony. His intelligence officers assured him that human defenses were minimal. They had only 3 patrol ships in the system, and Earth's main fleet was too small and too slow to arrive in time if the Zortans struck quickly. These humans are strange, he told his second-in-command. They have the technical ability to build proper warships, but they don't. They have the numbers to field a large military, but they choose not to. They must truly fear conflict to such an extent. That makes our job easier, said his officer. The colony will surrender once they see our fleet. Draxord nodded. The council was right about humans. They'll negotiate, compromise, or surrender. Anything to avoid fighting. He didn't know that Operation Quiet Reminder was complete. He didn't know that Earth's small fleet was far more capable than it appeared. And he certainly didn't know what happened when humans were pushed too far. He was about to learn. Back on Earth, President Garcia gave the final authorization. Position our reserve fleet near the jump point to Tau Ceti. When the Zortans make their move, we'll be ready. Admiral, Summers saluted. Yes, sir. And when this is over, the Council will never again mistake human restraint for fear. The day the Zortans made their move started like any other on Tau Ceti. Miners headed to their shifts in the deep tunnels. Farmers tended crops in the large agricultural domes. Children went to school, learning about their new home world and the old one their parents had left behind. Governor Rodriguez was reviewing colony expansion plans when the alarm sounded. He rushed to the control center where his security team was already gathering. 20 Zortan warships just entered the system, reported Security Chief Lisa Chen. They're moving toward the colony in attack formation. Rodriguez felt his heart race but kept his voice calm. Activate our defenses and contact Earth. In orbit above Tau Ceti, the 3 human patrol ships detected the incoming Zortan fleet. They were outnumbered nearly 7-1. Following standard procedure, they sent a warning message. Attention Zortan vessels. You are entering restricted space without permission. Change course immediately. The response came quickly. On the view screen, Draxord smiled coldly. This system now belongs to the Zortan Empire. Your colony has 1 hour to surrender, or we will take it by force. On Earth, emergency alarms blared through the military command center. Admiral Summers rushed in as officers took their stations. The Zortans have made their move, an officer reported. 20 warships at Tau Ceti. They've demanded surrender of the colony. President Garcia joined them minutes later. Status of our forces? Operation Quiet Reminder is ready, Admiral Summers replied. Our fleet is positioned at the jump point. They can reach Tau Ceti in 30 minutes. The president nodded. Send the order. Admiral Summers picked up a secure communicator. This is Admiral Summers. Authorization code Sierra Echo Victor Echo November. Execute Operation Quiet Reminder. Protect our people. At the edge of the solar system, hidden among the outer planets, Earth's true defense fleet received the order. These ships looked like standard patrol vessels from the outside, but inside they were something else entirely. Their crews were the best trained. Their systems were pushed to the limits of what Council rules allowed. Their captains knew exactly what to do. Commander Frank Miller of the flagship New Horizons addressed his crew. This is what we've trained for. The Zortans believe humans are afraid to fight. Today we show them how wrong they are. 30 human ships entered the jump point and vanished in flashes of light. At Tau Ceti, the Zortan fleet moved closer to the colony. Their hour-long deadline was only half expired, but Draxord was growing impatient. These humans will surrender, he told his officers, but perhaps we should demonstrate our power first. He ordered a single destroyer to fire on an unmanned satellite orbiting the colony. The satellite exploded in a bright flash. Now they understand we are serious, Draxord said with satisfaction. Then his sensor officer shouted in alarm, "Commander, multiple jump signatures detected." "What? Who would?" Draxord began, but stopped as he saw the sensor readings. 30 ships had just arrived in the system. Human ships. On the bridge of the New Horizons, Admiral Summers took command of the battle. All ships formed defensive perimeter around the colony, weapons free if the Zortans show hostile intent. Lieutenant Jordan Hayes sat in the cockpit of her fighter craft. She was part of the first response squadron, 12 small but deadly fighters ready to launch from the carrier ship Defiance. "Stand by, pilots," came the order. "Launch on my mark." The Zortan fleet seemed frozen in surprise. This was not what they had expected. According to all their intelligence, Earth's military was small, poorly equipped, and slow to respond. These ships should not be here. Draxord recovered quickly. They are bluffing. Their ships may be here, but humans do not have the will to fight. Open a channel. When Admiral Summers appeared on his screen, Draxord spoke with confidence. "Your presence is noted, human, but it changes nothing. This colony now belongs to the Zortan Empire. Withdraw your ships and no blood need be shed." Admiral Summers replied calmly. "You are in human space without permission. You have fired on our property. You will power down your weapons and leave immediately, or we will remove you by force." Draxord laughed. "Humans do not fight wars. The Council knows this. We know this. You will back down as you always do." Admiral Summers' expression didn't change. "You have 5 minutes to begin withdrawal." Draxord cut the connection. "Prepare to attack. Target their largest ships first." On the New Horizons, Admiral Summers turned to her tactical officer. "They're going to attack. I can see their weapon systems powering up." "Your orders, Admiral?" "The Council thinks we're afraid of war," she said. "Let's educate them. Launch. Fighters. Weapons free." From the Defiance, Lieutenant Hayes and her squadron shot into space. Her fighter was small but incredibly fast and maneuverable. Council regulations limited its weapons, but human engineers had found ways to make those weapons extraordinarily effective. The Zortans fired first. Energy beams lanced out from their largest ships, targeting the New Horizons. But the human flagship moved with unexpected speed, the beams missing by meters. The human fleet responded immediately. Lieutenant Hayes led her squadron straight at the Zortan line. "Attack pattern Delta," she ordered. The 12 fighters split into 4 groups of our 3, each targeting a different enemy ship. The Zortans had never seen fighters move like this. Human pilots trained differently. Where alien pilots relied on computers and set patterns, humans combined technology with instinct and creativity. The fighters danced through enemy fire, striking with precision before darting away. On his flagship, Draxord watched in growing horror as the battle unfolded. 2 of his destroyers were already disabled, their engines destroyed by precise fighter strikes. His largest cruiser was exchanging fire with the New Horizons, but the human ship was faster, its weapons more accurate. "This is impossible," he growled. "They are supposed to be weak." After 20 minutes of fighting, the Zortan fleet was in disarray. 5 ships destroyed, 7 heavily damaged. The humans had lost only 3 fighters and suffered moderate damage to 2 ships. Draxord faced a decision he never expected to make. "Signal our surrender," he ordered quietly. Admiral Summers received the surrender personally. Her face appeared on Draxord's screen, calm and professional. "You will withdraw completely from human territory. Any Zortan vessel entering our space, without prior authorization, will be considered hostile and engaged accordingly." As the Zortan fleet limped away, Lieutenant Hayes returned to the Defiance. Her fighter had taken some damage, but she had destroyed 2 enemy ships herself. As she climbed out of the cockpit, cheers erupted from the deck crew. On Earth, President Garcia received news of the victory. "Casualties?" was his first question. 17 dead, 42 wounded, reported an aide. The president closed his eyes briefly. "Each one a hero. Notify their families that they died protecting our people." He looked up. "And send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them we need to discuss our membership terms." In his private chambers on the council, Station Varleth reviewed the battle reports from Tau Ceti with growing concern. The humans had not behaved as expected. They had not negotiated or surrendered. They had fought with remarkable skill and determination. "We misjudged them completely," he whispered to himself. "They never feared war. They just understood its cost better than most." He knew the council would soon face a very different humanity than the one they thought they knew. The metal doors slid open with a soft hiss. Captain Allison Wright stepped into the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. Her heart beat faster, but her face stayed calm. This meeting would decide Earth's future among the stars. The chamber was huge. A circle of raised platforms held the 17 alien representatives who made up the council. Each alien looked very different from the others. Some had scales, others had too many eyes, and a few didn't even have bodies that made sense to human minds. Allison walked to the center of the room where a single podium waited. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. She wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps with its silver trim and small Earth patch. Behind her, 2 junior diplomats followed at a respectful distance. "The representative from Earth may address the council," announced the High Speaker Zakathar. He stood, taller than the others, his insect-like body covered in a shiny exoskeleton. His forearms were folded across his chest. "Honorable members of the Galactic Council," Allison began, "Earth thanks you for considering our petition for membership. For 5 years, we have maintained peaceful contact and trade with Council worlds. We believe the time has come for humanity to join your community as full members." Varleth, a snake-like alien with shimmering scales, leaned forward. "We have studied your historical records, Captain Wright. They raise concerns." Allison nodded. When first contact happened, Earth had shared its history as a show of good faith. Now she wondered if that had been a mistake. "Your species has a troubling past," continued another counselor, this one a blob of shifting blue gel. "You fought wars among yourselves for thousands of years. You developed atomic weapons and nearly destroyed your own planet several times. Many species have violent beginnings," Allison replied carefully. "We learned from our mistakes." "Indeed," said Zakathar. "Perhaps too well. Your records show that after your last global conflict, your species became remarkably passive." Allison frowned slightly. "I wouldn't describe Earth as passive. We simply found better ways to resolve differences." "You haven't engaged in large-scale warfare in nearly a century," said Varleth. "When faced with aggression, your nations prefer negotiation, economic pressure, or even surrender rather than direct confrontation." Allison opened her mouth to object, but Zakathar continued, "This isn't criticism, Captain. Many council members find this trait admirable. Your fear of conflict has pushed your species to find peaceful solutions." "It isn't fear," Allison said firmly. "It's wisdom." The council members exchanged glances that Allison couldn't read. She had studied alien expressions for years, but many species remained hard to understand. "Nevertheless," said Varleth, "your history suggests that humans are not suited for the harsher realities of interstellar politics. Several council races would exploit any perceived weakness." "We are not weak," Allison insisted. "Of course not," said Zakathar smoothly. You are technically advanced and culturally rich, but you lack the will for confrontation that sometimes becomes necessary beyond your solar system. The meeting continued for hours. The council asked detailed questions about Earth's military capabilities, colonial ambitions, and political structure. Throughout it all, Allison noticed a pattern. They had already decided that humans were afraid of war. As the session ended, Zakathar announced the council's decision. Earth is granted probationary membership with the following conditions. First, human military presence in space will be limited to defensive forces only. Second, weapons capabilities must remain below Class 3 specifications. Third, human territory is restricted to your home system, plus the 2 uninhabited systems already surveyed by your exploration vessels. Allison frowned. These terms were more restrictive than she had expected. Finally, Zakathar continued, Earth will contribute annual protection fees to the Council Defense Fleet, which will ensure the safety of human space. Protection fees? Allison asked. No other new members pay such fees. No other new members have such limited defensive capabilities, replied Varleth. This arrangement benefits everyone. You gain council membership without needing to develop military strength that your culture clearly finds distasteful. Allison wanted to argue, but she had no authority to reject terms. I will convey these conditions to Earth's government for consideration. We expect your answer within 1 standard cycle, said Zakathar. This council session is concluded. The chamber emptied quickly. Allison stood at the podium, troubled by what had happened. The junior diplomats approached. Captain, do you think Earth will accept these terms? Asked one of them. I don't know, Jason. They're offering membership but treating us like children who need protection. They completely misunderstood us, said the other diplomat, a woman named Kara. They think we're afraid to fight. That's exactly the problem, Allison replied. They've mistaken our preference for peace as fear of war. 3 days later, Allison's ship approached Earth. The blue-green planet filled the view screen as she prepared her report. How could she explain that the Council had fundamentally misunderstood humanity's nature? In the White House Situation Room, President Keith Garcia listened as Allison explained the Council's terms. His face grew darker with each condition she listed. Protection fees, he asked when she finished. They expect us to pay for the privilege of being treated as second-class members. They believe we won't fight even if provoked, Allison explained. They think humans are afraid of conflict. Admiral Nicole Summers, head of Earth's Space Force, shook her head. That's a dangerous misconception. Throughout history, those who believed humans wouldn't fight soon learned otherwise. Should we reject the terms? Asked Allison. President. Garcia was quiet for a long moment. No, for now we accept. Sir? Admiral Summers looked surprised. This misunderstanding might work to our advantage, the president said. If they believe we're harmless, they'll underestimate us. Meanwhile, we'll learn everything we can about council politics and technology. And if someone decides to test us? Asked Admiral Summers. The president's expression hardened. Then they'll discover how wrong they are about humanity's fear of war. As Allison left the meeting, she wondered if the council had made a terrible mistake. Humans didn't avoid war because they were afraid. They avoided it because they were so very good at it. 2 weeks later, Earth officially accepted the council's terms. Probationary membership was granted. Across the galaxy, council races noted the new species with little concern. Humans were technically capable, but clearly conflict-averse. They would pose no threat and would likely become useful contributors to galactic civilization. Only Varleth harbored doubts. As he reviewed Captain Wright's final statement to the council, something in her eyes had troubled him. Not submission or relief, but something else. Something that looked almost like patience. Computer, he said to his private terminal, begin a deeper analysis of human military history. Focus on how they respond when truly threatened. Perhaps, he thought, there was more to these humans than the council understood. News of the battle at Tau Ceti spread quickly across the galaxy. The council called an emergency session just 3 days later. Representatives from all 17 member species gathered in the Grand Chamber, speaking in urgent whispers. The humans had done the unexpected. They had fought back, and they had won. Captain Allison Wright, now Ambassador Wright, entered the chamber alongside Admiral Summers. They walked with confidence to the central podium. The room fell silent as they took their places. High Speaker Zakathar rose to his full height, his insect-like limbs clicking nervously. This emergency session will now begin. The first matter is the military action taken by Earth forces against the Zortan fleet at Tau Ceti. Ambassador Wright spoke clearly. Let's be accurate, High Speaker. Earth forces defended a human colony against Zortan aggression. We responded to an unprovoked attack. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Zortan representative, a substitute for Draxord who was still returning from the battle, hissed in anger. The Zortan Empire had legitimate interest in the Tau Ceti system, he said. We were pursuing those interests when your ships attacked ours. Admiral Summers stepped forward. Your ships demanded our colony surrender. When we refused, you fired. On our satellite. Those are acts of war by any definition. Zikathar raised all four of his arms for silence. The details of who fired first can be debated later. Of more concern to this council is the military capability demonstrated by Earth. Your forces exceeded what was disclosed to the council. Ambassador Wright smiled slightly. We disclosed exactly what the membership agreement required. The number of ships, their size, and their weapon specifications all fall within council limits. Yet your ships defeated a Zortan fleet twice their size, said Varleth, the Serpentine counselor. Unlike the others, he didn't sound angry. He sounded curious. Technology is only part of warfare, Admiral Summers replied. Training, tactics, and determination matter more. The council mistakenly believed humans avoid conflict out of fear. This was a serious error in judgment. The chamber erupted in Akasam voices. Some counselors demanded punishment for Earth's deception. Others called for a complete review of human military capabilities. A few simply watched in silence, reassessing everything they thought they knew about humans. Zakathar finally restored order. Ambassador Wright, explain your species' actions. You claim to prefer peaceful solutions, yet you responded with immediate military force. We do prefer peace, she said. But preference is not the same as fear. Humans avoid war when possible, because we understand its cost better than most. We fought our own wars for thousands of years. We know what happens when diplomacy fails. Admiral Summers added, the council mistook our restraint for weakness. The Zortans believed we would surrender rather than fight. Both assumptions were wrong. Varleth slithered forward. Let us speak plainly. We believed humans were conflict-averse to the point of weakness. We were wrong. He turned to face the other counselors. More troubling, evidence suggests several. Council members, including the Zortans, deliberately tested human resolve, looking for easy conquest. The Zortan representative hissed. This is outrageous. Is it? Varleth asked. My office has collected communications between Zortan commanders and representatives from 3 other council species. He named them, and the chamber grew tense, as the accused representatives shifted uncomfortably. Ambassador Wright watched this with interest. It seemed not all council members had supported the Zortan actions. Some, like Varleth, had their own concerns about how humans had been treated. The truth, continued Varleth, is that we imposed unfair conditions on Earth because we believed they would accept anything to avoid conflict. We charged them protection fees for a threat we ourselves were creating. High Speaker Zakathar clicked, his mandibles nervously. These are serious accusations, Counselor. They are facts, Varleth replied. And now we must deal with the consequences. Humans are not what we thought they were. Ambassador Wright stepped forward again. Earth requests revised membership terms. We want standard territorial rights, including the 2 additional systems near Tau Ceti that we have already begun to survey. We want normal military allowances, the same as any other council member, and the protection fees will end immediately. You make demands after violating the spirit of our agreement? Asked the High Speaker. We followed every letter of the agreement, Admiral Summers responded. If the spirit of the agreement was that humans should be easy targets for exploitation, then yes, We violated that spirit completely. The debate continued for hours. Some counselors argued for punishing Earth for its deception. Others recognized the practical reality. Humans had proven they could defend themselves effectively. The old arrangement was no longer viable. In the end, the council agreed to review Earth's membership terms. A committee would be formed with Varleth as its head. Until new terms were finalized, the protection fees would be suspended. As the session ended, Ambassador Wright and Admiral Summers left the chamber. In a quiet hallway outside, Varleth approached them. "That was educational," the serpentine alien said. "I must admit, I had my doubts about your species from the beginning." "You seemed less surprised than the others by our actions," noted Ambassador Wright. "After our first meeting years ago, I ordered a deeper study of human history," Varleth explained. "Your wars were impressive in their scope and intensity. It seemed unlikely that a species with such capacity for warfare would truly fear it." Admiral Summers nodded. "We don't fear war, Counselor. We respect it. There's a difference." "Indeed," Varleth agreed. "A difference many of my colleagues failed to appreciate. They saw your preference for peace as weakness. They didn't understand that those who know war best often desire it least, not out of fear but wisdom." Back on Earth, President Garcia reviewed the reports from the council meeting. The political situation remained delicate, but Earth's position had improved dramatically. The Zortan threat had been neutralized for now, and other potential aggressors would think twice before challenging humans again. "What happens next?" asked Director Martinez, who had joined him in the Oval Office. "We rebuild our relationship with the Council on more equal terms," the President replied. "We continue to expand our colonies and develop our defenses, and we remind everyone that humans prefer peace, but we do not fear war." In his quarters aboard the Council station, High Speaker Zakthar studied footage of the battle at Tau Ceti. The human ships had moved with surprising coordination. Their fighters had demonstrated tactics he'd never seen before. Most concerning, their crews had shown no hesitation, no fear in the face of superior numbers. "We misunderstood them completely," he murmured. "They weren't avoiding war because they feared it. They were avoiding it because they're too good at it." He switched off the display and stared into the darkness of space. The galaxy had just become a more complicated place. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they would no longer be underestimated. 1 year after the battle at Tau Ceti, Earth had a very different standing in the galactic community. The new membership agreement was finally complete. Humans now had 5 systems officially recognized as their territory: Sol, Proxima, Tau, Ceti, and 2 new systems that Earth explorers had already begun to survey. The protection fees were gone. Earth's military was now allowed the same rights as any other council member. Most importantly, other species no longer viewed humans as easy targets. Ambassador Wright stood on a balcony overlooking the gardens at the new Earth Embassy on the council station. The large building showed Earth's improved status. Where once humans had only small offices, now they had a proper diplomatic headquarters. "Beautiful view," said a familiar voice behind her. Ambassador Wright turned to see Varleth, slithering onto the balcony. The serpentine alien had become an unexpected ally over the past year. "Enjoying the reception?" she asked. Inside the embassy, a diplomatic party was underway. Representatives from 12 council species had come to mark the first anniversary of what was now called the Tau Ceti incident. "It's quite impressive," Varleth admitted. "Though I noticed the Zortans declined their invitation. They're still not our biggest fans," Ambassador Wright said with a small smile. "Losing a fleet tends to create hard feelings." Varleth moved beside her at the railing. "Your species remains a paradox to many of us. You maintain military capabilities that could easily expand into aggression, yet you genuinely seem to prefer cooperation. Perhaps that's what makes effective warriors," Ambassador Wright suggested. "Those who understand the cost of war value peace more deeply, but will fight more decisively when necessary." Inside the embassy, Admiral Summers was speaking with military representatives from several council races. After the battle at Tau Ceti, Many species had requested training exchanges with human forces. They wanted to learn how humans fought, both to defend against them if needed and to improve their own capabilities. "Your fighter pilots showed remarkable skill," said a bird-like officer from the Avis Confederation. "Our pilots rely heavily on automated systems. Yours demonstrated exceptional, instinct?" "Improvisation," Admiral Summers corrected. "Humans train for structure, but prepare for chaos. We expect plans to fail and learn to adapt quickly." Across the room, President Garcia had arrived for the occasion. This was his first visit to the Council Station, a symbolic gesture showing the importance Earth now placed on its galactic relationships. "An impressive recovery," said High Speaker Zikathar as he approached the President. "From probationary member to full Council status in only 4 years. Many species take decades to achieve such standing. We had a strong incentive to speed up the process," President Garcia replied diplomatically. The insectoid High Speaker made a clicking sound that humans had learned was laughter. "Indeed, the Council made a significant error in judgment regarding your species. It will not be repeated." "Errors in understanding between different cultures are common," the President said. "What matters is learning from them." Later that evening, Ambassador Wright gave a short speech to the gathered diplomats. She stood tall in her formal uniform, now decorated with the symbols of her diplomatic rank. 1 year ago, a misunderstanding nearly led to tragedy. The Council believed humans avoided conflict because we feared it. This was incorrect. We avoid war not from fear, but from hard-won wisdom. Our history taught us the terrible cost of conflict, but also how to fight effectively, when necessary. She raised her glass. "Today we celebrate a new understanding between our peoples. Earth joins the galactic community not as a conquered protectorate, but as an equal partner. We bring our human paradox with us, a profound desire for peace coupled with the resolve to defend it. Those who mistake our preference for peace as weakness do so at their peril." The reception ended late. As the guests departed, Director Martinez, who had traveled with the President, joined Ambassador Wright on the balcony. "Quite a change from your first council meeting," Martinez observed. "Sometimes being underestimated works to your advantage," Ambassador Wright replied. "Though I prefer our current situation, respect is better than misconception." Back on Earth, people went about their daily lives mostly unaware of how close they had come to losing one of their colonies. The battle at Tau Ceti had been reported as a defensive action, with few details released to the public. Better not to worry people about a threat that had been handled. Life continued in the colonies too. At Tau Ceti, Governor Rodriguez watched as new buildings rose across the landscape. The population had grown to 60,000, with more arriving each month. The colony had become a symbol of human determination. Lieutenant Hayes, the fighter pilot who had distinguished herself in the battle, now commanded the Permanent Defense Squadron at Tau Ceti. Her pilots patrolled the system regularly, but no, Zortan ships had returned since the battle. The Zortans themselves had faced their own consequences. Their empire had withdrawn from Council space entirely following internal upheaval. The defeat by humans had weakened the military leadership, allowing civilian reformers to gain power. The Zortan Empire was changing, becoming less aggressive, less expansionist. In the council chamber, a new human representative took her seat alongside the 17 other species. Full membership came with full responsibilities, and Earth now had a voice in all council decisions. Varleth watched with satisfaction. He had been right to question the initial assessment of humans. They were indeed a fascinating species, full of contradictions and surprises. Their entry into galactic politics had changed the balance of power in ways no one had predicted. The galaxy itself seemed different now. Other species looked at humans with new eyes, seeing not the conflict-averse weaklings they had imagined, but a complex people who valued peace yet excelled at war. In orbit above Earth, the Council's diplomatic vessel departed alongside the new Horizons, now serving as humanity's premier diplomatic escort. The aliens aboard viewed the blue-white planet below with newfound respect, recognizing that humanity's complex relationship with conflict had produced not a species afraid of war, but one uniquely equipped to wage it when necessary, and wise enough to avoid it when possible. "They're still watching us," Admiral Summers observed as she tracked the departure of several alien ships from Earth orbit. "Good," replied President Garcia. "Let them watch, let them learn, and let them remember what happened when they thought humans were afraid of war. The stars spread out before them, filled with new possibilities, new challenges, and new understanding. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they were here to stay.